In the 6 years since our son was born, my husband has missed 5 of his birthdays. On his 6th birthday, my husband still didn't show up, but sent a beautifully packaged cake instead. Our son held the cake and ran to me excitedly, saying, "Mom, look. Dad didn't forget my birthday this time." But half an hour later, our son went into anaphylactic shock from the peanut butter in the cake. In the ambulance, he held my hand, his eyes red, and asked, "Mom, does Dad really hate me?" I didn't answer. Trembling, I called my husband. The moment the call connected, his icy voice came through, "I already sent a cake. What else do you want from me?" The phone call ended, and as I looked at my son's swollen cheeks and tear-filled eyes, I finally sobered up completely. Some love will never come. And some people are simply not worth waiting for. Watching my son being resuscitated in the emergency room, my heart felt as if it were being sliced by a knife. Because my son is allergic to peanuts, our home has never had a single peanut. Every time we eat out, I double-check to ensure his safety. In the past month, my son has had allergic reactions twice, both because of Gavin. 3 weeks ago, on Gavin's birthday, he came home drunk and casually gave my son a peanut cookie as a gift. My son ended up hospitalized for 3 days. Today is my son's 6th birthday. When I saw the cake Gavin had someone deliver, I wanted to inspect it. But my son was overjoyed and couldn't wait to dig in. Never in my wildest dreams did I expect this. The moment my son took a bite, his entire body began to swell, and within minutes, he went into shock and lost consciousness. Only then did I realize the cake was loaded with peanut butter. Watching my son hovering between life and death, my heart was filled with self-blame. I hated Gavin. But I hated myself even more. Why, despite my repeated warnings and past experiences, did he still bring a cake containing peanuts? Why did I foolishly believe that 7 years of waiting could warm this man's heart? Why did I have to fall in love with Gavin? And when the culprit of it all, Gavin, arrived at the hospital, the first thing he said to me was, "Allergic again?" I didn't answer, only asking him, "Who bought the cake?" The man froze for a moment, as if remembering something, a flash of regret flickering in his eyes. "Sorry, I forgot." I nodded. Right, he'd just forgotten his son's birthday. Forgotten his son's peanut allergy. Forgotten the promise he'd made at his son's birth, "I'll take care of you two for the rest of our lives." I turned away, refusing to look at him anymore. Gavin also fell silent, pacing incessantly outside the emergency room, trying to play the role of a responsible father. But the next second, when the ringtone unique to his first love Jennifer sounded, the man threw me an apologetic glance and then turned away without hesitation. I watched his retreating figure, no longer hoping for him to turn back for the first time. Half an hour later, my son was wheeled out of the emergency room. The first thing he said upon waking was, "Mom, is Dad here?" I paused for a moment, turned my head, my eyes slightly red, and softly told him, "Dad came to see you, but he's busy with work, so he had to leave first." A flicker of disappointment crossed my son's eyes, but he quickly lifted his little face to look at me. "Mom, I want to call Dad and tell him I'm okay, so he doesn't worry about me." Seeing the eager look in my son's eyes, I couldn't bring myself to refuse. "Okay." My son obediently took the phone and skillfully unlocked the screen. Suddenly, the anticipation in his eyes faded as he stared blankly at the phone screen, motionless. My son handed the phone back to me, his voice choked with tears. "Mom, I'm tired. I want to go to sleep." I quickly took the phone and only then realized he had seen Jennifer's latest Facebook update on my feed, such a caring dad. The photo showed Gavin applying a towel to Jennifer's son, who was holding a puppy toy. Watching my son bury his head under the blanket, my heart finally turned to ashes. The first time he gave our son a cake, he ended up in the ER. Before our son even woke up, he went off to play dad for Jennifer's child. After 7 years of marriage, my son and I waited for him for 6. That night, we finally gave up completely. That night, I booked a flight to France, leaving in 3 days. One way. No looking back. From the very beginning, I knew that my marriage with Gavin was the result of his revenge on Jennifer. That year, his childhood sweetheart Jennifer went abroad to study, and they broke up. I took the heavily drunk Gavin back to the hotel and was pulled into bed by him. After waking from the dream, I fell into another dream. To marry him, I waited for him for 5 years. To build a home with him, I waited another 6 years with our child. But it wasn't until today that I realized love cannot be waited for. Early the next morning, I was having breakfast with my son when Gavin appeared. He handed a plush dog toy to our son, patted his head, and said, "Richard, this is for you." "I'm sorry, Dad was too busy last night." The son's eyes narrowed as he pushed the doll away, saying, "Dad, I'm scared." It was when Gavin first took his 4-year-old son out shopping. But in the middle of it, he let go of his hand to answer Jennifer's call. The young child got separated in the crowd. By the time they found him again, he was crouched by the roadside, trembling in fear from stray dogs. Since then, the boy had developed a fear of puppies. Unexpectedly, Gavin brought home a puppy doll. Gavin seemed puzzled. Other kids love puppy toys the most. Suddenly, he remembered that past incident and hurriedly threw the doll out the door. Then, as if to make up for it, he asked, "Richard, do you have any other birthday wishes? Daddy will make them come true for you." The son looked up, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Really? Dad, I want to go to the amusement park. Can you and Mom come with me?" Gavin was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. "All right, such a small wish, Dad will definitely make it come true. Tomorrow, we'll go tomorrow." The son nodded, his voice clear and bright. "Okay. Pinky promise." Gavin shook his head helplessly. "Pinky promise." Watching the harmonious scene between the two, I clutched the plane ticket in my bag, set to depart in 2 days, my eyes slightly red. "Gavin, I hope you can keep your promise and be a good father. Even if it's just for 2 days. The next day, I took my son for his checkup alone. Not seeing Gavin, my son was a little disappointed. "Mom, didn't Dad promise to take me to the amusement park? Why isn't he home?" Unable to bear seeing the disappointment in my son's eyes, I took out my phone and sent Gavin a message. "Are we still going to the amusement park today?" As usual, after sending the message, there was no reply. My son lowered his head, clenched my fingers, and asked softly, "Is Dad in another meeting?" Then, he smiled understandingly and pretended not to care as he said, "It's okay. Dad is busy with work." "I understand." Hearing my son's sensible words, my heart felt as if it were being crushed under a heavy stone. The pain was so intense I could barely breathe. Just as I was about to speak, my phone chimed. It was a message from Gavin. "I'm waiting for you at the amusement park." Joy surged through me instantly, and I eagerly showed the chat interface to my son. "Richard, do you see? Dad is waiting for us at the amusement park." My son froze for a moment, then immediately broke into a happy smile. After 7 years of marriage, this was the first time Gavin had kept a promise he made to our son. After receiving Gavin's confirmation, my son was excited the entire way. He chattered non-stop about riding the carousel and going on a multi-person bike ride together. He had always watched others ride before, but now that both Mom and Dad were here, he wanted to experience it like everyone else. At this point, my son asked me, "Mom, if Dad has fun, will he be more willing to spend time with me in the future?" I was taken aback for a moment, then felt even more heartache, silently praying that Gavin wouldn't stand us up. At the entrance of the amusement park, my son and I waited for a long time. The agreed-upon time had long passed, but Gavin still hadn't shown up. As the park was about to close, I looked down at my son, hesitating to speak. My son seemed to understand. He smiled at me knowingly and said, "Mom, let's go in. Dad probably won't make it. You play with me instead." I stared blankly at my son, my heart aching. How many times had this happened? I'd lost count. With a faint smile, I crouched down and hugged my son. "Richard, Mommy is here with you. Mommy will always be with you." My son gave a muffled but his eyes couldn't help turning red. After composing myself, I held my son's hand and walked into the amusement park. The moment we entered, my son froze in place. "Daddy?" Gavin, dressed casually, was sitting on a bench holding a balloon, with a half-eaten box of popcorn beside him. Hearing our son call him, he instinctively turned toward us, his pupils contracting. "What are you doing here?" His words made me pause mid-step, and a sense of foreboding rose in my heart. But our son was too excited. He rushed over and hugged the man's leg. "Daddy, you really came. Let's go together." Before he could finish speaking, my son was bumped aside by a figure. "Go away, this is my daddy Goo." Driven by maternal instinct, I immediately shielded my son in my arms. Gavin also instinctively stood up, paused for a moment, but then protected the boy behind him. "George didn't mean it, I apologize on his behalf." Both my son and I were stunned. This kind of protection, this level of care, my son had never experienced it before. I glanced at the boy shielded behind him and asked with difficulty, "Is this Jennifer's child?" Gavin gave me a guilty look, lowered his gaze to the child, and remained silent. Jennifer, who had just returned from buying tickets, walked up to Gavin, gave him a gentle look, and then patted her son's head. "George, being mischievous again. Apologize to your brother." "Mom, I didn't do anything wrong." "Didn't you say that Dad Goo is my dad too?" "Dad said he would spend the whole day with me today," George said, quickly clutching Gavin's arm to claim his territory. Seeing George's move, the son hurriedly grabbed Gavin's other arm and retorted loudly, "My dad isn't your dad Goo. He's my dad, and he said he would spend today with me." But the next second, Gavin abruptly pulled his hands away. The son lost his balance and almost fell to the ground. "Dad?" The son stared at Gavin in disbelief. A salesperson happened to walk over with a flyer. "Hello, we have a free family portrait event here, but only families can participate. Would you like to join? Dad Goo, let's go take a family photo." Jennifer's child tugged at the man's hand, looking excited. Completely ignoring his son standing nearby. Gavin pursed his lips, his gaze shifting between him and his son. After hesitating for a moment, he sighed, let go of Jennifer's child's hand, and walked over to his son. Meeting his son's hopeful gaze, Gavin spoke softly, "Richard, be good. Don't disturb Daddy." After speaking, he turned to Jennifer, "Let's go take a family photo." Their son looked at Gavin's retreating figure in disbelief, the tears in his eyes finally overflowing. He lifted his tear-streaked face, forcing an awkward smile, "Mom, let's go." Growing up in a single-parent household, I always thought having a father would better protect my son. But now it suddenly occurs to me, perhaps protecting my son means keeping Gavin away. As my son and I were strolling leisurely back home, we found Gavin already waiting there. "You must be hungry, go wash your hands and come eat. I cooked all these dishes myself. It's been a long time since our family had a meal together." Looking at the dishes Gavin personally laid out on the table, their son's sullen expression gradually brightened. Just as they were about to sit down for dinner, Gavin casually remarked, "Jennifer's new place has a leak. I want her and George to stay with us for a few days. You and Richard should pack up and stay elsewhere for a couple of days." I stared at him in disbelief. "You mean you want me and our son to make room for Jennifer and her child?" Gavin frowned, "Don't make it sound so harsh. It's just for 2 days. They just returned to the country, a widow and her child struggling to get by here." I smiled, but felt a chill in my heart. "So, Dad, is this an exchange?" The son's voice was soft, and Gavin froze for a moment. "What did you say?" The son shook his head and said with a smile, "Dad, can you join us for this meal?" Gavin stared at his son intently, reaching out to pat his head. The phone rang. It was Jennifer's ringtone. "Gavin, George isn't feeling well. Can you come take us to the hospital?" Gavin's expression changed, and he immediately stood up, grabbing his coat. The moment Gavin opened the door, his son suddenly shouted, "Dad." Gavin's moving foot paused, and he turned to meet his son's slightly reddened eyes, speaking softly, "Richard, wait for Dad to come back." This time, the son didn't nod, just silently watched him leave. That night, Gavin didn't return either. Early the next morning, I took our son to the airport. Before boarding, I asked him, "Mom won't be coming back this time. Will you blame me?" Richard noticed my hesitation, held my hand, looked up at me, and said, "Richard will never blame Mom. From now on, I only want Mom." Seeing the determination in my son's eyes, I smiled with relief and sent Gavin one last message: "Let's get divorced. I wish you happiness." The next second, my phone started vibrating incessantly. Seeing the words husband on the phone screen, I only felt irony. Swiftly switching the phone to airplane mode and turning it off, I boarded the plane with my son. "Sorry, the number you dialed is powered off, please." The repeated prompt from the phone made Gavin inexplicably irritable. After receiving Jennifer's call last night, he rushed over in a hurry. Only to find out upon arrival that George just had an upset stomach. Though it was nothing serious, Jennifer was worried about George, so he took the mother and child to the hospital. After George fell asleep, Jennifer said she was scared. Unable to resist Jennifer's clinginess, Gavin had no choice but to stay and keep her company by the bedside. Thinking about not returning home last night, Gavin felt a rare pang of guilt. Before leaving the hospital, I ordered a cake in advance on my phone. I specifically noted, "No peanuts." It was meant to be a surprise for my son, as well as an apology. In the car, Gavin felt a surge of inexplicable emotion. So he called and booked a photo studio, planning to take family portraits with his wife and child over the weekend. They would surely be thrilled. But his restless hand tapping on the car armrest betrayed the unease in his heart. Gavin couldn't shake the feeling that this time, he might lose them forever. At this thought, Gavin shook his head with a smile. Impossible. Nora loved him so much, how could she ever leave? It must be the exhaustion from work lately, making him overthink things. In Gavin's mind, as long as he shows a little kindness, my son and I would be overjoyed. This time is no different, everything will return to how it was before, just like always. Gavin is confident about this. After all, I am hopelessly in love with him. Just a small gesture, a little coaxing, and I won't stay angry. No matter how many times he hurts me, my love for him will smooth everything over. Yes. Whether it was 7 years ago when he forced himself on me while drunk, or 7 years later when he hurt our child for Jennifer's sake. He always thinks that with just a beckoning gesture, I would crawl back to him like a dog. From the day I joined the company, Gavin started paying attention to me because I liked him. It wasn't something I suddenly realized, I've known for a long time. In college, I was very introverted. But every time I saw Gavin, the love in my eyes overflowed. My admiration, my joy, all were openly revealed without reservation. He could completely sense it. This was something he had never experienced with Jennifer. A knock on the door interrupted Gavin's thoughts. The office door opened, and Jennifer walked in. She blushed shyly, handed a document to Gavin, and spoke softly, "Gavin, could you help me look at this file? I don't understand it." Gu Jiaming's brows furrowed almost imperceptibly. When I was a secretary, I never asked why. I would research everything privately, and even if I encountered something I didn't know, I would find a way to solve it myself. No matter when, I always presented the optimal solution. Often gives Gavin unexpected surprises. Even after marriage, I would still help Gavin with documents. "Gavin, what's wrong with you?" Jennifer waved her hand in front of Gavin, who was spacing out, bringing him back to reality. Gavin froze for a moment, quickly masking the impatience on his face. Handed the documents back to Jennifer. "Have another secretary review them for you. Take your time, you'll get used to it eventually." Jennifer's lips twitched, feeling somewhat awkward. Unwilling to give up, she spoke again. "None of them are as skilled as you. I want you to teach me." Gavin had never found Jennifer annoying before, this was the first time. She was foolish, stupid, and lacked emotional intelligence, completely oblivious to the situation. Gavin pinched the bridge of his nose. Picked up the phone nearby. The screen happened to display a new message I had sent him: "Gavin, let's get a divorce." Gavin's heart skipped a beat. Seeing that Gavin ignored her, Jennifer switched to a coquettish tone, whining sweetly. Distracted by his phone, Gavin grew irritated and snapped, "Get out. Don't make me say it again." Jennifer was stunned by the shouting. With a hurt expression on her face, she left the office. Only then did Gavin continue staring at his phone. Using all his strength, he sent several messages. "Nora, what do you mean? Are you out of your mind? You'd better not test my limits." There was no reply to the messages. Gavin called again, but still no one answered. A strong sense of unease enveloped him. He cancelled his upcoming meetings and drove home. On the way, he kept calling my number, trying again and again even though no one responded. By the time he reached the doorstep, the calls remained unanswered. Married for 7 years, this was the first time. No matter what happened before, no matter how angry or upset I was, Gavin's calls were answered instantly. Gavin's messages were replied to immediately. Even at the company, I was always at his beck and call. Gavin finally made it to the doorstep, but his hand trembled uncontrollably as he reached for the key. Nora and our son must be waiting for me at home, and they probably made my favorite dishes, Gavin thought to himself. Yet when he shakily opened the door, the house was empty. Walking into the kitchen, the first thing that caught his eye was the fridge magnet. The most prominent one, adorned with little stars around it, was a photo of their family of 3. Perhaps it couldn't really be called a family photo. In the picture, my son and I were smiling happily, while Gavin looked visibly annoyed. He had no idea when this photo was taken, but it was clear he had been caught in it without his knowledge. Other stickers on the fridge. All are reminders, every single one written for him. Dad must not skip breakfast. Dad, there are Xylon Bayo in the fridge. Dad, your medicine is on the second shelf. The childish handwriting radiates overflowing affection. At first it was me, then it was always my son. We kept up these seemingly futile practices all along. Walking out of the kitchen, Gavin spotted the Lego set on the table. It was a gift from a business partner trying to curry favor. Somehow, they'd learned he had a son and gave it to him, saying it was for parent-child bonding. One day, I brought our son to visit him. The boy was overjoyed when he saw the Lego set discarded in the corner, thinking it was a gift Gavin had prepared for him. After bringing it home, his son invited him to play countless times, but was sternly refused each time. Gradually, no one bothered him anymore. Next to the Lego was a glued-together ceramic jar. Gavin certainly remembered. He loved drinking coffee, so his son made this gift for him. On the day it was given to him, Gavin was on a phone call. His son waited quietly nearby. When the call ended, the boy approached with the item. "What is this thing? Can't you see I'm busy?" "Don't bother me," Gavin said angrily. With a casual swipe, he accidentally broke the jar and also cut his son's foot. "Nora, how do you take care of the kids?" Without waiting to see what would happen next, he grabbed his briefcase and walked out the door. Thinking of this, Gavin picked up the ceramic jar. His mind flashed back to the hurt expression on his son's face. It was the first time in his life he felt regret. Gavin slumped on the sofa, beginning to recall every little detail between us. Our relationship was less like a marriage and more like a superior-subordinate dynamic. In this relationship, Gavin held the dominant position. He was neither a good husband nor a good father. He didn't remember my birthday, nor our son's. All he knew was having an obedient secretary and a somewhat burdensome tag-along. Gavin sat on the sofa, staring at the door. When it was completely dark outside, still no one opened the door. Bang, bang, bang. Someone knocked. Gavin stood up happily. "Nora, you." Before he could finish, Gu Jiaming saw Jennifer at the door, and her son, George. Jennifer had been snubbed by Gavin earlier that morning and now brought her son to salvage the situation. Gavin's face fell in disappointment. It wasn't the mother and son he had hoped for. Just as he was about to ask them to leave, George barged in without hesitation. Jennifer followed George into the room. She glanced around and immediately spotted the cake on the table. Gavin heard Jennifer's voice, laced with delight. "You even ordered a cake today, so thoughtfully celebrating for us?" "Gavin, I knew it, you've always had me and George in your heart." Gavin felt a pang of bitterness and froze in place. Before he could react, the repaired ceramic jar was picked up by George and casually tossed aside, shattering into pieces. "What an ugly jar," he said before turning to tug at the nearby Lego. "What are you doing?" Gavin's voice carried a hint of anger as he strode toward the broken jar on the floor. He carefully picked up the fragments, but the jar was already beyond recognition, utterly destroyed and impossible to repair. "Gavin, it's just a jar. George didn't mean to. I'll buy you a better one. That jar looks so hideous anyway." "What did you say?" Gavin's voice was chillingly terrifying, making Jennifer shiver all over and George hide behind her. Gavin's sharp gaze seemed capable of killing. Jennifer sensed something was wrong and hurriedly pushed George forward to apologize. "George, quickly apologize to Dad Goo." From behind, George spoke timidly. "I'm sorry, Dad Goo, I didn't mean to." To lighten the mood, Jennifer walked over to the cake. Noticing the logo on the cake box, she cautiously said, "The cakes from this shop aren't good. Next time, let's order from my friend's place, they'll taste better." "Cake? Friends?" Gavin suddenly remembered the cake that sent his son Richard to the hospital last time. It was made by one of Jennifer's so-called friends. "That previous cake, you had it specially ordered." His tone wasn't questioning but firm. Jennifer's hand, poised to cut the cake, paused mid-air. Still, she spoke calmly. "Huh? What cake?" Gavin didn't miss the fleeting guilt that flashed across Jennifer's face. Nor did he overlook Jennifer's subtle fidgeting, the way she pinched her fingers. It was her telltale sign of lying. "Playing dumb with me? Do you think I'm stupid?" Gavin's heart sank to the depths in an instant. Jennifer actually wanted to kill his son. Gavin could forgive Jennifer for cheating and abandoning him. He was willing to give her anything she wanted. But he never imagined she could be this malicious. He would stop at nothing to kill his own son. Jennifer, unless specifically instructed, who would add peanut powder to a cake? Gavin tightly gripped Jennifer's wrist. "Gavin, what are you doing? You're hurting me." Nearby, George saw his mother being bullied and came over to hit Gavin. "You villain, let go of my mom, let go." The child's shrill cries were unbearably annoying. Gavin casually waved his hand, pushing the boy down, then viciously shoved Jennifer away. "Get out." Terrified, Jennifer picked up her wailing son from the ground and quickly left. After Jennifer and her son were driven away, Gavin staggered to the sofa. Weakly leaning against it, he gazed at the brightly lit world outside the window, overwhelmed with boundless sorrow. Just until yesterday, every time he came home, the house was always bright, with meals ready on the table. Watching the happy family of 3 across the street, Gavin found it extremely irritating. That was supposed to be his life too. His heart seemed to be tearing apart endlessly. Only now did Gavin finally realize. He had nothing left. Just like that, Gavin sat on the sofa all night. A single night made Gavin look 10 years older, completely dispirited. Early in the morning, the fax machine nearby suddenly started working. Gavin hurried over to check. He had imagined all sorts of possibilities but never expected it to be the divorce papers I sent him. Because I knew he would definitely be home at this time. After years of taking care of him in daily life, I had become thoroughly familiar with his routines. After a quick glance, Gavin's eyes fixed on a certain spot. Due to irreconcilable differences, the couple's relationship has been confirmed as broken beyond repair, with no possibility of reconciliation. Through mutual consultation, both parties voluntarily agree to divorce and have reached a consensus to establish the following agreement: husband, Gavin; wife, Nora. When was the divorce agreement signed? Gavin had no recollection. The only document I handed him recently was one. Could it have been at that moment? Gavin was startled. That day, Jennifer was on the phone with him, sharing everything about George. So when I handed him the document, he didn't review it as carefully as usual. Nora, how could you do this to me? Gavin felt deeply upset. He rushed into the bedroom and searched carefully, only to find that everything had already been taken away. Things about Richard. Things about me. Ceramic jars, Legos, fridge magnets. Because they were trash, she didn't want to take them. Gavin couldn't accept this reality. He shouted my and Richard's names loudly in the room. As if doing so would make me and our son appear before him. Half an hour later, Gavin's voice grew hoarse. Why, abandon me? He had thought many times about leaving, abandoning me and Richard, to live with Jennifer. But he never imagined that the one who would make the decision first would be me. Never imagined that, unknowingly, he had already fallen in love with me. Couldn't live without me anymore. The divorce agreement on the table was torn to pieces by Gavin. He wanted to find me. He needed answers. Gavin grabbed his coat and headed to the office, planning to make quick arrangements before leaving. But then he saw Jennifer blocked at the company entrance. Her facial recognition had been deleted, so she couldn't get in. Determined, she waited outside, just to see Gavin one more time. The moment Jennifer spotted Gavin, she rushed forward. Gavin, why did you fire me? Why? Gavin sneered. I think I made myself very clear yesterday. Jennifer froze. Gavin, I can explain. You have to believe me. Gavin looked annoyed. Take any questions to my lawyer. Jennifer grabbed his hand, showing no intention of letting go. Gavin threatened, don't think just because I've been polite to you for a few days that you can lay hands on me. Jennifer fearfully stepped aside, watching helplessly as Gavin walked away. Since coming to France, I used my savings to open a flower shop. The French are romantic, so business isn't bad. Plus, with my son helping out, life couldn't be more fulfilling. My best friend Mia stayed in France after graduating from university. Every year, she invites Richard and me to visit, but I always refuse. Thankfully, with her help, Richard and I were able to adapt much faster. Richard started learning various languages from a young age. At first, I worried he might be unhappy and miss life back home. But every day after school, Richard would share everything with me, what the teacher taught that day, how many new friends he made. Nora, today I'm taking Richard out to play, Mia's voice came from the shop entrance. Go ahead, remember to come back early. I'll make you spare rib soup. Hearing Mia's voice, Richard put down the orchid in his hands and rushed out. Godmother, I'm coming. After waving goodbye, I continued arranging today's flower bouquets. Opening the shop was just a way to pass the time. Gavin wasn't stingy with money. The funds in my card were enough for George and me to live lavishly for several lifetimes. Ding-a-ling, the wind chime at the shop entrance rang. A customer had arrived. Before I could even look up, a familiar voice reached my ears. Nora. My heart skipped a beat, and I raised my head to see Gavin standing at the door. Gavin always cared about his appearance and was never sloppy. But now, his face bore an exhaustion I'd never seen before. Yet even so, it couldn't hide his handsomeness. Gavin's face is stunning whether as a man or a woman. Back then, I was utterly captivated by that face too. Everyone says Gavin's only redeeming feature is his looks, and that his personality is actually quite terrible. But I don't agree. It was one night at school. My bike tire suddenly burst, and in my carelessness, I fell off, my leg swelling with pain. Gavin, who was passing by, carried me on his back all the way to the hospital. Before I could even say thank you, he had already left. My admiration for him grew even deeper at that moment. He is the heir of the Gu conglomerate, while I come from an ordinary single-parent family and am not even pretty. But I just like him. For him, I changed my major because the Gu group needs talent in this field. During college, I kept striving hard for no other reason than to stand by his side. even if it was just a distant glance. It was this very determination that led me to stand on the podium as an outstanding graduate and deliver a speech. I also received an offer from the GU Corporation. That time I got drunk. I don't regret it because I reached for my son. Even if he didn't love me, even if it was just an accident, I thought I could warm his heart. I let out a sigh of relief, suppressing the strange feeling in my heart. Sit down, I'll pour you some coffee. Gavin was pleasantly surprised. After taking a sip, he spoke with a choked voice. You still remember? Yes, I remember what his favorite coffee was like. I got so used to it that even the shop stocked this kind of coffee. I didn't respond. Spoke again after a few minutes. You've seen the divorce papers, right? I don't want the money, just Richard's custody. After all, you don't even acknowledge him. Gavin's hand tightened slightly as he spoke slowly. I disagree. This outcome didn't surprise me. If he had agreed, he wouldn't have come to France to find me. Suit yourself. Whether we divorce or not doesn't matter. Richard is by my side, and I have my own life. Gavin can't stay here forever. Gavin was infuriated by my attitude and even became somewhat incoherent. You were the one who climbed into my bed back then. Putting on such an act now is utterly ridiculous. Nora, you still love me. Don't deny it. Climbed into bed? So this is how Gavin has seen me all these years. I smiled bitterly. I admit I liked you, but I would never stoop to something so despicable. No wonder Gavin's attitude toward me changed drastically after he woke up. Though I was just a secretary, he had always treated me with some consideration. But after that night, he turned cold and even became harsh in our work interactions. What do you mean? Gavin's face was full of confusion. What I mean is, was it me climbing into bed, or was it you forcing yourself on me? Getting drunk and forgetting everything, is this how you, President Gavin, handle things? Gavin looked incredulous, his thoughts in complete disarray. I liked you, so I endured what you did to me. Now I just blame myself for being naive when I was young. Falling in love with a scumbag like you. Gavin was so shaken by my words that he could barely stand. Impossible, impossible, Seeing Gavin like this, I had nothing more to say. Figure out what happened back then yourself, don't pin all the blame on me. And don't disturb my life ever again. After fleeing the flower shop, Gavin immediately called his assistant to investigate the past. President Gavin, it was Miss Jennifer who had someone drug you, she didn't want you interfering with her life abroad. Gavin couldn't hear the rest. He wronged Nora. Gavin had never regretted anything so much. If only he had taken the time to verify the facts back then, he wouldn't have missed out on so many years with Nora. He truly loves me. But that incident from years ago has always been a thorn in his heart. Because of it, he hurt me and our son over and over again. After finding out that his son was currently at the amusement park, Gavin hurried over. If our son is willing to forgive him, would I perhaps also? Gavin bought a set of Ultraman toys and arrived at the amusement park, quickly spotting Richard's location. Richard. Hearing someone call his name, Richard turned his head. After seeing Gavin, he turned away again. Seeing this, Gavin hurried to Richard. Richard, I'm your dad. What's wrong with you? This is a gift from me to you. Unexpectedly, his son looked indifferent. Uncle, I don't have a dad, and I don't like Ultraman either. Give it to George. Seeing his son about to leave, Gavin desperately grabbed his hand. Richard, stop being angry, okay? Dad is here to take you and Mom home. No, I won't go back. This is my home now. And I hate you. Gavin stiffened, let go of Richard's hand, and stood alone at the intersection, watching Richard go after Mia. Richard, who is that? Godmother, I don't know him. He's a weird uncle. You mustn't talk to strangers in the future. Mia knew exactly who he was, she was deliberately provoking Gavin. Gavin left in despair. He signed the divorce papers. He told me he had made a will, leaving the children to Richard in the future. I ignored him, I didn't want to believe his words. After Gavin returned to his home country, he would visit me and Richard every year. I didn't stop him. After all, each time he came, he brought Richard a large sum of money. I didn't interfere, that was between Richard and him. After all, I have my own things to do, starting a new love again